Creating a sobriety habit means creating freedom. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound like something you want? This is one of the ways that we get out of that mindset of the fear of missing out, that belief that we are giving up something if we stop drinking. We are creating more freedom in our lives by not drinking.
I dreamt that you were twisting through 7 suns of gold, and the gypsy was insisting that it's starring.
Hello there, and welcome to the Soberful podcast, and welcome to 2023. Oh my God, does anyone else feel like time is going by really, really fast? I can't believe it's January already. So today I'm doing a solo episode, and I'm doing this because it's just something I wanted to get deep and meaty into, and it's about building a sobriety habit. So that is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I have been sober for well over 22 years, and I do not know everything, but I do have some idea of what works. The one thing I do know that works is having a regular practice. All of us have lots of practices, right? You have had an alcohol practice, an alcohol habit for a long time. It's quite familiar. I mean, when you drink, there's usually a lot of familiarity to that process, right? Maybe certain drinks, certain glasses, certain venues, certain places. So drinking doesn't just happen. You have patterns and rituals, and you do things consistently. So a sobriety habit is kind of the same thing, but in reverse. So we want to develop a habit of sobriety, a practice. And I'm going to use the word habit and practice interchangeably, but I want you to know that it pretty much means the same thing. So that's what I want to cover today. A couple of things to let you know before I get started. I am going to be going on a couple of tour dates in January with Bar again. Super happy to do that with Chris Marshall, who makes the best zero proof cocktails. I am going to be in Phoenix on the 7th of January, so that's coming up pretty soon. And I'm going to be in San Diego on the 21st of January. So if you are in San Diego or Phoenix, we would love to see you. Bar puts on a wonderful, wonderful event. It's usually in a great venue. There's lots of sober folks just looking to kind of hang out and party and have fun and have some nice grown-up alcohol-free drinks. I'll be signing books and doing a little reading and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are around, please come and join us in one of those two places, and then check out the rest of the Bar tour as Chris is hitting a lot of places throughout the year. Okay. So I know that you are here listening to this podcast because wherever you are in your journey, you want sobriety to work for you. And maybe you followed Chip and I because things haven't worked as well as what you want them to. So I'm going to lay out exactly what I think you need in your sobriety practice, the essential elements, and I'm going to tell you what I do as well. So I want to start with defining what being sober actually means. Being sober is for the folks who alcohol most definitely was a problem, and we eventually come to the realization that we need to be sober. So being sober for me, it's about being emotionally sober. We can't just not drink alcohol. If you are someone who's had a problem with alcohol, if all you do is not drink alcohol, realize it's a problem, stop drinking, you're kind of leaving 90% of what's offered here in sobriety on the table. The not drinking alcohol bit is about 10% of the deal. Now, it's the first part of the deal, and it's one of the most significant parts of the deal because nothing's going to be achieved while we're still messing around with alcohol. But the 90% is the emotional sobriety part. Emotional sobriety is when we feel comfortable in our own skin, which just means we are at ease with ourselves. It just means that we like ourselves. What a concept, huh? I don't know about you, but I can definitely tell you there's been many years of my life, particularly my drinking years, where I didn't like myself. I didn't like how I behaved. I didn't like what I said. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like how I showed up in the world. And I most certainly wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And alcohol provided some ease and comfort away from that feeling. So emotional sobriety is when we just feel comfortable in our own skin, at ease with ourselves, and we just don't behave in self-destructive ways. So please understand that being sober is not just about not drinking alcohol. It's so much more than that. And the reason for this is when we develop a problem with alcohol, it's not something that often happens overnight. It takes a little while. And then when it becomes established and alcohol becomes a large feature of our lives, generally what we are doing is outsourcing our emotional life to alcohol. We use alcohol to manage our emotions and to manage our internal state. We're outsourcing to alcohol to manage internal conditions. So when we stop drinking, so what happens over the years when we do that, there's a few things that happen. When we rely on alcohol to manage our emotional state, it means that we don't develop skills, tools, strategies, practices to develop our emotional state in a healthy way, because we just use alcohol, just fixes it. I remember back in the day when I was dating this guy, another loser, and he dumped me. And I put the phone down, it was over the phone. And I remember thinking, this is a 2-bottle of wine job. This is not a 1-bottle of wine job. This is a 2-bottle of wine job. And I remember distinctly going to 2 different off licenses because I didn't want them to think that I had a problem. I got dumped by this guy and I just felt this wave of fear and self-loathing and despair and rejection. I felt these emotions coming towards me like a freight train. And I had absolutely no idea how to support myself through those emotions apart from drinking alcohol. That was the only way I knew how to deal with anything that was difficult, was to drink. So when we stop drinking, we are often emotional teenagers because we just have spent years not developing practices to deal with our emotions in a healthy and productive way, in a way that makes us grow, helps us grow. So a sobriety habit is about staying sober by managing your emotional life. And it's really important you understand that link, that fundamentally what is underneath a sobriety practice is methods that help you deal with your emotional life for the rest of your life. Make sense so far? So let me ask you a rhetorical question. Those of you who are listening to this, what is your goal? And I'm going to say for hopefully most of you your goal is to be sober or to stay sober. So it sounds like an easy question, right? Of course that's your goal. And I'm going to say all of you have probably achieved your goal. You have been sober for a length of time at some point. Maybe it was a day, maybe it was a few weeks, maybe it was a few months or even a few years. So all of you have achieved your goal. But it's not about the goal. When we focus on the goal of being sober or staying sober, it actually trips us up. What we have to focus on is the system, not the goal. Because all of you have achieved the goal, right? Is there anyone listening to this who hasn't achieved the goal of being sober? Even if it's just for a day or two, here or there, you've achieved the goal. It's not about the goal, it's about the system that gets you to the goal. And that's the first lesson in creating a sobriety habit that works. Don't focus on the goal, Focus on the system that will get you there. Otherwise, if we just try and reach for our goals with the system we have been using so far in life, we will always get what we've always got, which is drinking. So I want to tell you, I'm drawing quite heavily here on the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I love because as soon as I read it, he says everything I've been saying for years about sobriety, and he says it in such a fantastic way. So I'm really taking what he teaches and applying it to the message of sobriety. So what do I mean by system? And what I mean by system is the way you live your life, your habits. Your habits are your system. This means we have to unlearn a lot of things and do some things differently in order to maintain sobriety. Now, don't feel daunted by this. It's not about overhauling your life in 1 week. It's actually about making small changes consistently. Now, this word is going to come up a lot. And if you have worked with me in any coaching program, you know that I talk about consistency a lot. It is the backbone to your sobriety. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. Creating a sobriety habit means creating freedom. Alcohol keeps our lives very small. So change your mindset around that. You are creating more freedom in your life by not drinking. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't that sound like something you want? This is one of the ways that we get out of that mindset of the fear of missing out, that belief that we are giving up something if we stop drinking. We are creating more freedom in our lives by not drinking. And these little mindset tweaks will help you create a sobriety habit. So the system, so that one of the things I teach is about the 5 pillars of sobriety. It's in my book, Soberful. By the way, if you haven't bought the book, get the book. It's all in there. If you focus on the system, which could be the 5 pillars, it could be many things. It could be the 12 steps. It could be the Women for Sobriety program, but it's all those things are systems. Then sobriety will take care of itself. Focus on the system, not the goal. Because we do not want to spend our days arguing with ourselves about whether we are going to drink or not. So one of the mistakes I see people make, and this is one of the things that James Clear talks about so clearly in his book, is that when people try and change their habits, what they do is apply intensity over consistency. And we do that with, whatever habit we're changing. I mean, it's January, right? So tons of people are like getting fit and losing weight. It could be a whole bunch of other, maybe your goal is to get organized. And what people do is they apply intensity over consistency, and it doesn't work. And here's why. We set the goal of being sober, and for a few days or weeks, we use intensity, which is basically willpower, to just try really, really hard. We're buying lots of books and listening to podcasts and maybe we're buying a program or going to some meetings or whatever. And we're just doing it all. But what happens is willpower is a muscle, and muscles get fatigued. So we may have made big promises, but because we don't have an effective system or sobriety habit, when stuff happens, and it will, and by that, what I mean is life stuff, things don't work out. We get a disappointment. We get resentful. We get frightened, whatever. We have exhausted our intensity and have no system to deal with life apart from the one which we have used so far, which is reverting to alcohol to deal with the difficult stuff. These are the things I hear people say all the time in my Facebook group, for example. I'm going to try really, really hard this time. I just need to be stronger. I just need to resist temptation. It's all of those things are intensity statements. They're basically saying, I'm going to intensely try and do this using exactly the same tools that I've used so far in my life to really do it this time. And I know you mean it when you say it. I know you mean it 100%. But again, if you are using the same life system that you have always used, you're going to get the results you've always got. which is drinking. And it's a complete waste of energy. So what we want to do is we want to make tiny improvements consistently. So here is the good news, everybody. And again, James Clear talks about this in his book. If we get 1% better every day, you'll end up 37 times better at the end of the year. And it works in reverse. If you get 1% worse, but through the year, you're at the end of the year, you are 37 times worse. I want to say this has massively helped me because initially, I mean, for somebody who's tried that method of intensity over consistency with lots of different things, 1% to me just feels like, why 1%? Why bother, right? It's like nothing. But it's actually the compound interest of self-development. 1% is like 5 to 20 minutes a day of personal development of a sobriety practice. Now, I know everybody listening to this podcast can do that. If you've had an alcohol problem, that's hours every week. Can you give me 5 to 20 minutes a day? The answer is yes, you can. And that is how we build an effective system. So doesn't that feel kind of great, right? Like we can all do 1%. All of us, everybody listening to this can do 1%. The point is not the percentage. The point is the consistency of it. And that's how we build an effective system. 1% just feels doable. So one of the things that I used this system to change is I have a really bad back and I have to take care of it. So I've been very reliant on a chiropractor. I go really regularly. And for a while, my chiropractor has been saying to me, Veronica, you need to strengthen your core and you need to stretch every day. And I was like, I'd always exercised, but I was like, yeah. I exercise, I do stretches. I wasn't really, I thought in my head I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it in a specific way that helped my lower back. Well, one day it was particularly bad and I was like, oh God, I really need to do those stretches. And I did those stretches and I kind of did it for a few days. And after a few days, it wasn't very long, I noticed how much better I felt. And I was like, ooh. And something in my brain clicked. I clicked that when I consistently did these stretches, I began to feel much better. And I really liked the way that I felt. And it shifted things for me. I just think I only have to do 1%. So typically what happens at 1% is like 5 minutes of stretching, right? Typically I just think, oh, I'll just do that. And then I usually end up doing more. Most times I end up doing more. But even if I've just done that 1%, the 5 minutes, I benefit from it. It's the consistency of doing it. When you build a sobriety habit, there's going to be a period of time where we just do it and do it and do it. And we don't know if we feel like it's working or changing. There will come a point when your brain makes that connection, like I did with my back. When I do these regular exercises and stretches, I really like how I feel. And then the doing of those things just becomes a must. It just becomes a habit that I don't think about because I like the good stuff and I like feeling good. So this is how you can start. Do something that supports your sobriety every day. And if it's just 5 minutes, do that. But it's the consistency of doing it that's going to make all the difference. And I'll go over what some of those things can be shortly. Now, I want you to know that, and this is really important, and Chip and I have done some episodes on this, early sobriety is not how it is long term. In the first few months, you are making an investment in yourself, in your sobriety, and you have to keep consistently making that investment until you reach a critical threshold. And I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. But please know Early sobriety is very unique. And I'm talking about the first few months, significant months. And it could be really the first, about the first year. It's not how it is long term. Things change. It's very unique. So know that going into this. So let me explain this critical threshold concept because it's really, really important. The outcomes you are looking for, and again, the outcomes we're looking for, number one is to be sober, but again, it's actually much more than that. What everybody is looking for, whether you realize it or not, is to be emotionally sober, which is to feel comfortable in your own skin and to like yourself. That's actually what the outcome that people want. We want to like ourselves again. So those outcomes that you are looking for are delayed as you build towards a critical threshold. The really good stuff is going to come later. And I want you to know, it's not to say in the first week, month, or few months, things won't feel demonstratively better, because they will. You know, I remember, I think after about 3 weeks, 4 weeks of sobriety, I remember going rollerblading and kind of just feeling amazing. I just felt incredible. And I realized it was because I just wasn't hungover, and I hadn't been hungover for a while, and I'd had some sleep and eaten better and drunk lots of water. And I just noticed, like, God, whoa. I realized there's lots of people walk around feeling like this all the time. I was so used to being really hungover for half the week all the time. That was just my normal way of being. So, after 30 days, you're going to notice that you feel better. You maybe have more energy. Maybe you're sleeping better. Again, it's different for everybody. It depends on health issues and age and all that kind of stuff. But as the days and weeks go by, you are going to improve. Things are going to feel better. Things will start improving and you will notice these changes. But emotional sobriety, what I've been talking about, that takes longer. That takes an investment of time. And you have to keep building your sobriety habit until you reach the critical threshold. With our bad habits, we usually get an immediate reward, right? But the ultimate outcome is bad. With good habits, it's in reverse. There is often no immediate reward, or it's much smaller, but the ultimate outcome is good. So, you might be 7 days alcohol free and feel a bit better, but still feel a bit lethargic and like dull and like you're missing out. So there's no immediate reward. It takes a bit of time. So let me explain how we get to this critical threshold. And this is really important for your sobriety. And this is an example James Clear uses in his book. So imagine you have an ice cube. And we want to get this ice cube to melt. So we are sitting in a room with the ice cube on the table, and the ice cube and the temperature of the room is 27 degrees. And we're looking at the ice cube and we want it to melt. So we raise the temperature and the temperature of the room goes up to 28 degrees and nothing happens. The ice cube is still an ice cube. So we raise the temperature to 29 degrees and nothing happens. The ice cube is still an ice cube. We raise it to 30 and it's the same. And we raise it to 31 and then we raise it to 32. Still nothing happens. We raise it to 33 and then we see a drop of liquid on the ice cube and it begins to melt. All the action happens after the temperature has reached 32 degrees. By the way, for those of you in Europe, this is in Fahrenheit. Freezing is 32 degrees. So all of the action happens. Nothing. So you may be like, I don't know, you're raising the temperature, you're willing on the ice cube to melt, you're intensely looking at it, raising the temperature and nothing's happening. There is no change. The critical threshold is at 33 degrees. And I see so many people quit at 31 degrees because they don't see what they want to see. That is the critical threshold. Trying to resist temptation or trying to be strong to not drink is not a habit. It will set you up for failure. So, one of the ways to get started to begin this sobriety habit, and remember, you're just going to do 1% every day. So, maybe that's 5-10 minutes. Every time you do that, perhaps you do it in the morning or evening or whatever it is, acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you are making an investment in the sobriety bank. Mark that in some way. If you do more than 5 or 10 minutes, great. But acknowledge that you are putting an investment in the sobriety bank until you reach the critical threshold. Generally, people make a few small changes, fail to see a result, and give up and default back to their previous habits. So our 1% changes need to persist until we have this breakthrough. Then we can see the relationship between our habits and the good stuff that we get in our lives. And I'm all about the good stuff, guys. I'm all about the good stuff. So let me outline some of the things you can do right now. One habit you can do is change how you identify, change your language. You are not trying to quit. That actually leaves a back door open. You are living an alcohol-free life, or you are a non-drinker, or you don't drink. Make this your identity. If you are wishy-washy about it, you're actually pushing it away. So change your language, change your identity. Don't leave any back doors open to possibly maybe having a drink down the road. So decide what kind of person you want to be. If you want to be a sober person, do something every day that proves that to yourself. What would a sober person do? A sober person would put their sobriety first each day. A sober person would ask for help. A sober person would join a community so they are not alone. A sober person would create time to focus on their sobriety habits because they are worth it. Again, in my book, I outline the 5 pillars of sobriety, which are if we apply these pillars, which are just personal, it's just personal development. It's emotional well-being. The consequence of that is that we don't want to drink because we like how we feel about ourselves. So the 5 pillars, in case you're not aware, are movement, balance, connection, process, and growth. And I'm not going to go deep into what they are because it's all in the book. I think we've also done podcasts on that and that kind of stuff. So you can check it out there. But it's focusing on those things, on the practice. Those things are habits. They will then support our sobriety. So you don't need a sobriety toolbox that you dip in and out of. This is the bit that's always rubbed me up the wrong way. It's almost like you're a car and off you go driving, and every so often you break down, you go into your toolbox and you fix your car and off you go again. That doesn't work for me. What we want to do is just take care of ourselves on a very regular basis, and then we don't break down. Or, when we hit difficult times, and you will in your sobriety, we have because of this practice, we've made such a good investment in the sobriety bank. It will get us through that difficult time, and we will have practices that we can deepen and rely upon to get us through the difficult time. What our practice needs to have is methods that support our mental and emotional health for the rest of our life. And for me, a key part of that, and I will tell you exactly what I do, is we need to be able to self-reflect. So we need to look and review at our resentments, our fears, our limiting beliefs. Those for me are core issues that all human beings struggle with. So it's not that we're special and unique in any way. We all struggle with that stuff. But here's the thing. When I struggle with that stuff and I don't win, my brain goes to alcohol or drugs to fix those difficult feelings those things bring up. So that's why a core part of a sobriety habit is a way to self-reflect and change our resentments, review our fears, change our limiting beliefs. And we need to do that for the rest of our lives because we're never fixed, right? Let me tell you, I've been doing this for 22 and a half years, and I really thought one day I would hit perfect. I'm not there yet. I'm still a human being that has human experiences. And sometimes I just have intense emotional responses, and I can't see the wood for the trees. I don't have a perspective, and I don't like the way it feels. So I need a method, a system of self-reflection so I can see things differently and then I can feel differently. Sobriety is really just two things. Sobriety is consistency that leads to a shift in perception. That's all it is. So if any of this has made sense, I hope it has. If it's resonated with you and you are like, yes, Veronica, tell me, show me how to build a sobriety habit, I have a free training that is starting next week, and I would love for you to be part of it. And I am going to go through exactly what that is for you to start your own sobriety habit. So we start on Monday, January the 9th, and then we go through to the 13th. And every day it's at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. at the UK. And I'm going to take you through everything I know to build a sobriety habit that works. So day one, I'm going to teach how sobriety comes easy when it's a habit. Day two, I'm going to be talking about the biggest mistakes to avoid. Day three, I'm going to explain why intensity over consistency doesn't work. Day four, I'm going to teach you about the secrets to building a sobriety habit. That's the day not to miss. I'm going to tell you all of my secret sauce. And day five is going to be time for questions and coaching on this. So this is a very special training. I'm very excited about it because I've been working on this for some months. It's been kind of buzzing away in my head that I keep hearing this toolbox thing, and I'm like, no, it's because you don't have a practice. You don't have a practice. So I'm going to lay that all out for you. And if you would like to come along and experience that with me, you can go to soberful.com to sign up for that. You can, if you're on my mailing list, or follow me on Instagram at Veronica J Valley, there'll be links there to sign up. And you can, of course, if you can't make it live, you can get the recording. But I will be taking questions. I'll be doing some coaching as we go along, and I will help you build your sobriety practice. So thank you so much for listening to this episode and starting 2023 with me. I hope this is the year that you get everything that you want, that your life does begin to change, that it goes to the next level. And we will be back next week with another episode. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.